Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Courtside with Christy and Gabe right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I am Christy Winter Scott, joined as always by my guy, Gabe Ibrahim. Gabe, there's so much going on. Obviously, I'm in the gym. Where else would I be during basketball season? So, forgive the basketball noises in here, but that's the best I can do today so we can get our pod in this week because there's so much to talk about. WNBA free agency, obviously some ridiculously good college games, overtime games, one possession drama, games. So let's just, I guess, start with the WNBA, right? And the free agency of it all.
Well, this is kind of perfect. I mean, the podcast is called Courtside. Christy is currently courtside. We're talking about the WNBA. There are WNBA players in or around wherever Christy is in the Wizards practice facility. So I think this is a great setting for a podcast, personally.
Yeah, it's fun. Courtside, legit, literally courtside.
We've done it a couple times, legit courtside.
We have. So, we got to do it again together, but this is where we are. That's
oh God.
But it's fine.
Guess who's working out behind Christy? It's a member of
just her, yeah.
Oh, don't tell him. I was good.
I
thought you say it. All right. Let's get into it, though. Obviously, big news. The biggest news that honestly, like some of the biggest news we could possibly get on this podcast. Jonquel Jones is on her way to New York to become a member of the Liberty. I will sum up the trade here. Actually, I have a thing for this.
Okay.
I got a thing. Here is the screenshot, if you're watching on YouTube, of the trade from Alexa Philippou. So we got New York getting Jonquel Jones and Kayla Thornton. They send Beck Allen and the 6th overall pick to Connecticut. Connecticut also gets Ty Harris from Dallas. Dallas then gets Natasha Howard from New York and the rights to Crystal Dangerfield, again from New York. Huge,
major,
massive trade with all three teams. I think we should take this first from the team that's gaining the most here in Jonquel. What do you think of New York getting the former MVP?
Oh my gosh, I think it's a phenomenal move. Just to anybody who gets Jonquel Jones, whether she stayed in Connecticut or moved somewhere else, like she's going to impact that team. I mean, she's a former MVP, for goodness sakes. And just what she's able to do at 6'6", Gabe, I mean, she just changes the game in so many ways on both sides. So just going to New York, playing alongside Sabrina Ionescu, the 1-2 punch of that alone is intriguing, to say the least. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see that dynamic as the season progresses and the chemistry between, in particular, those two develop. I think it's going to be fun to see, but wow, Connecticut, just looking at the ramifications of that on the other end, Jasmine Thomas now in LA, like there's so many things, like that team is going to be completely different, and Stephanie White is the new coach there. So there's a lot of things I'm intrigued by with that move. Obviously with what New York looks like, but also what Connecticut looks like as well.
Well, and for Connecticut, they were kind of pressed into this because Jonquel requested a trade, and then they allowed her to meet with the prospective teams to see where she would fit best. And then she decided on New York, so it was the only trade partner they had. So they didn't have as much leverage. And Jonquel, they wanted to put Jonquel where she wanted to be, both because they're a good organization who wants people to be happy, and because she shares an agent with both Allisha Thomas and Bree Jones. So, obviously her agent is going to be dealing with all three of them, and then 2 of them are going to stay in Connecticut with the news that Brianna Jones got cored. So obviously we have a lot to talk about with Connecticut, and I want to get into that Jasmine Thomas trade and what they're going to look like. But with New York, so you mentioned Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones. I mean, that's couldn't really draw up a better pairing for either of them. I think they're both really going to benefit from that. Sabrina just growing into her pick and roll abilities and understanding, how to get people open and where her reads are. And she's got better in that. And her shooting really will change the game and allow Jonquel to get to the rim a lot more, hopefully, and vice versa, right? Jonquel's shooting is going to be a better fit with Sabrina than, like Natasha Howard's, the player they sent out. Natasha Howard's a great player, just not quite the shooter, not quite the big, not quite the everything of Jonquel Jones, because we're talking about an MVP candidate here.
Exactly.
So they just got a lot better in that regard. And you look at, everything else around this trade, they gave up a lot. So they gave up Natasha Howard, who was a star player for them. They gave up Beck Allen, who's a starter for them, a really, really good starter for them. The 6th overall pick in this draft, and it's a kind of weak draft, but that's a pick that they could use. And the rights to Chris Dangerfield, who was another player starter for them last year.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, to get a player of Jonquel Jones's caliber, this just doesn't happen often, that these players are available in a trade and they just want to come to your team. That is just not a situation that occurs very often. And they did great for it. And this is probably like, the biggest trade since, maybe not the biggest trade, let me see, but probably since Elena Del Don, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when Elena was in Chicago, she had been an MVP in Chicago, right? So with Jonquel Jones having earned an MVP honor, I would say it's definitely on par with a move like that. And, MVPs, when they relocate, that's a major deal. I don't care who it is. Like, you're MVP of the league for a reason. That means you've been a dominant force in the league. So, yeah, absolutely. I would say it's very comparable to Della Don.
Yeah.
And her move to DC. And you saw what happened with that, with the championship in 2019. I mean,
what?
It's
a complete franchise changing, right?
Yes.
When you get a player of this caliber in, it changes your entire culture, your entire franchise, and changes everything about you. And, you look at the Mystics, so that trade happened in 2017, 2 years later, they've already been to the finals twice. They win the finals, and they now have built this team, even in the absence of EDD for so long in that stretch. They've still been able to rely on her to build the culture. So you look at that, and I think you're going to see a similar effect in New York. I think Jonquel is going to become a bigger star in New York, which is something she wanted to do last year. It's great for the game. Like, this is just awesome. Like, this is really good for the WNBA to have Jonquel and Sabrina in New York. Just like flat out, it's really good. And then Kayla Thornton's a really good basketball player. And they kind of seem to have plucked her out of nowhere. And she struggled from 3 last year, but she's shown that she can shoot 3. She's shown that she can be a 3-and-D type of player. I think she's going to be really big for them. So just amazing trade all around for New York.
Yeah. Well, I think
A+.
Absolutely A+. And I also think with Jonquel's presence there, I think it's going to really free up Sabrina, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways where they can partner up on the same side of the floor and make teams make tough decisions. So I think there's a lot of schematic things that we need to look for once the season begins, with those two playing with one another, and what that looks like for the team as a whole. I mean, they're a super young team, right? And to mm-hmm. have her to be a plug and play. I mean, Sabrina, what is she in her 4th year, coming up 4th, right?
Yeah, Sabrina's in her last year of the rookie contract.
Right. So, I mean, relatively speaking, I mean, they're not rookies, but they're not, 8, 9, 10 year players on that roster for the most part. So
not yet,
but I'm saying,
but Christy,
it's a good thing.
Let me pull out my Lee Corso pen.
Uh-oh.
Not so fast, my friend. This team's not done. They also opened up cap space in this deal. They opened up about $44,000 of cap space.
Oh, wow.
They have space to bring in a Supermax player, perhaps one that we've talked about on this podcast a couple times when it comes to New York. One, I don't know if you've heard of her.
Little Stewie action.
a little Stewie and Jonquel Jones. I mean,
oh boy.
It'd be a problem, folks. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Obviously, the rumors are gonna, go around. Yeah. And I've been on this rumor for a while of Brianna Stewart to New York. But even past that, they've also been in talks with Courtney Vandersloot, apparently. And apparently, someone mentioned. I don't know if this is true rumors or just someone saying this on Twitter.
Who said that?
Someone said she's like willing to take a minimum deal to come to New York.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, all right, we're verging into Big 3 territory.
Yeah, I was going to say that happens.
With the Liberty.
That's going to be tough. That happens. I mean, plug and play is not, necessarily what it would be, but that would be really fun to see if that dynamic works out. The 3 of them.
That's plug in a championship, I believe.
Yeah, that's plug and win.
Yeah, and so, but outside of that, though, even without Brandon Stewart, they still have plenty of space. So we're going to see this New York team's going to be very different, I think, by the end of a free agency.
Agreed.
Now we can talk about Connecticut a little bit more because
dive in.
You know, this starting five has been together for what? I mean, not the starting five, but most of it, the four of them.
7-8 years.
A long time.
Is that legit? Like I'm just off the top of my head. It's probably statistically not 100% sound, but I'm thinking at least 7 years minimum, maybe 8.
I feel like that is what it definitely feels that way. I mean, let's 2014, Jonquel.
Yeah,
Jonquel's a little younger than everyone, so it's really when she came along.
Yeah,
that they really took their next step, and that was about 2017 because 2016 she was a rookie. So 2017 is the year that Chene was hurt and she stepped in. So 5 years of this team just being really, really solidly good, consistent. Now you look at it, Kurt Miller's gone to Los Angeles. Jonquel Jones is in New York. Kurt Miller took Jasmine Thomas to Los Angeles in a trade in which Connecticut gave up Jasmine and the number 10 pick in this year's draft for Olivia Nelson-Ododa, Jasmine Walker, and the rights to Kiana Smith. So maybe they think Olivia Nelson-Ododa is better than anyone in this draft, but that is not a lot of return for a player of Jasmine Thomas' caliber. So
experience, yeah.
You're looking at this team.
Want their point guards. Coaches want their point guards. That's what that is. Kurt wanted Jasmine in LA, right?
And maybe it was another situation where they were, we haven't heard that, she requested a trade or anything, but maybe they came to her and was like, hey, we're going to look to trade you. Do you want to go to LA? And maybe that was the answer. Yes. And maybe they're doing right by her. And that's why it explains the low return. But I don't know. What does this team look like? Because they cored Bree Jones. She's going to be there. Alyssa Thomas will be there. DeWanna Bonner will be there. Natisha Heideman's still under contract.
Right.
Past that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's Nia Cloudman time.
There you go. You got to pull out that shirt. Wait, whose shirt do you have on today, though?
I have Cola Bad Bear from Montana State. So I made a joke about her on some podcast earlier this year, and Dano, my guy, shouts to Dano, got me this shirt. Also, shouts to everyone who commented on our 100th episode. Thank you guys. It made me feel really happy. I got to send this to Christy.
This is 101 right now.
Someone said their favorite thing for me to do was to put you on the spot for predictions. So I'm going to do that.
Really?
And then have you panic briefly.
Yeah, that's me. That sounds about right.
Sorry for the long detour. I want to get your thoughts. So what does Connecticut look like? Like, what do you think they are going forward?
Well, I think they look totally different, obviously. They didn't have Jasmine Thomas last year because of her knee injury, right? After a couple of games in. But at the same time, without Jonquel Jones, they're totally different too. So it's like you take the bookends, if you will, position-wise away for this team. Right. And Stephanie White, she's a fantastic basketball mind. So I know that it would be interesting to see how she makes those adjustments without those bookends of players on the court. But I think it's going to be interesting to see the new pieces and the chemistry of them fitting in with the remaining players on the roster. So I'm just anxious to see that, I think, and to see what Stephanie White does with the puzzle pieces and how long it takes for them to regroup themselves in terms of chemistry, because I think it's going to take some time to do that, especially without those two key pieces to your team. So I'm anxious to see. I'm excited about it, but it's also it's going to be quite a project, I believe, to have Connecticut, who was a perennial team that was, deep into the playoffs, if not the finals, to be able to regroup and redevelop a different style, even because it's a different style without Jonquel Jones. It's a different style without Jasmine Thomas on the court. So I just think it'll be interesting to see what the personality of this team is, and it may take until the All-Star break of the WNBA season to actually see it. But at the same time, I think it'll be a good thing.
Well, and what a situation for Stephanie White to walk into. I mean, you come to, and she probably knew. They probably told her like, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. We're
Right.
going to have to change things up because we just have to move. We have to move on from the era that we had."
Right.
But I mean, this is going to be Alyssa Thomas's team now, and it has been her team,
It
has
has.
been her team. She is going to have, pretty much unfettered ability to do what she wants with this team. And I still think that front court lacks shooting. Obviously, you have Alyssa Thomas, who doesn't shoot. Bree Jones, not a shooter.
Right.
DeWanna Bonner's up and down with the three-point shot. Last year was really good,
Yeah.
but has been up and down in her career. So they lack some shooting. So you're going to need guard shooters. But that three in the front court, that's going to still be hard to beat,
Exactly.
That's gonna be still a tough trio to beat down low. I think they're gonna be really strong. I think Alyssa Thomas, hey, maybe this is the year that she breaks through in the MVP race. And because she's the absolute best player and she's just driving everything and taking the ball to the rim, being the engine,
Yeah.
as you like, hey, maybe
The
that's
A-train.
where
Yeah.
the A train, and we've seen her do it in the past, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And it gets tougher without Jonquel because of the spacing, but I also think it's a little easier for her just to say, because she knows this is her team. Like, she is the best player. She doesn't feel like she has to get them involved if she doesn't want to. She can take it on her own.
Exactly. No doubt. And I think she wants that. I mean, this is the point in her career where I feel like it's a good move for her to be in this role and to embrace it is her team, and it's time for her to move in that space. Knowing how competitive she is, knowing how disciplined she is to her work ethic, knowing how she pushes through with her with her shoulder situations. Not a lot of people can do that. So just to know what her mental makeup is, I think the challenge in front of her is immense, but it is welcomed by a player like Alyssa Thomas, who thrives in moments like that and in opportunities like that to grow as a competitor. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch her in that space with this team.
And it's going to be fun to see, Jonquel in a different place. It's going to be fun to see Jasmine in a different place. It's fun to see Kurt in the sunshine. He's going to have a great tan. Oh, guys, he can just wear the Hawaiian shirts all year. He can just wear them all year.
At the store, at the games.
So I think it's going to be. I think Connecticut got worse. I mean, you trade Jasmine Thomas, you trade Jonquel Jones. No way you didn't get worse, but maybe there's a way for them to get back into contention. And now I want to talk about the third team in this trade, Dallas. Yeah. And I want to talk about them in two regards. Not only what they did in the Jonquel Jones trade, but then in their trade of Allisha Gray. So last week, I believe I may have said that I don't think Allisha Gray is getting traded because I wouldn't trade her. As always, Gabe is wrong. So
not always, just sometimes, like me.
Often Gabe is wrong, and she does get traded to Atlanta. We still don't know the terms of that deal. I think because it involves future draft capital, which is a new rule. So teams can trade future draft picks. Not just this upcoming draft, but in the next two drafts, I believe. And that can't happen until tomorrow, the 21st. So maybe we'll get details on that tomorrow when the calendar turns. But it seems like it's a lot of draft capital going Dallas's way in return for Allisha Gray. The dream picking up Gray, but Dallas, I just want to talk about where they're headed for a sec, because they pick up Natasha Howard, who I think is a really good fit with their current core.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Crystal Dangerfield fits into their plans, but it's nice to have her rights in case they strike out on some other point guards.
Yeah.
I just don't understand getting draft picks when you want to win now. So I'm wondering if they're trying to wheel and deal and find another player to use that draft capital on.
Yeah, that's a great question, because, I mean, talk about the beginning of last season and Crystal Dangerfield going from team to team, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
It's just tough. Like, it's hard to find your niche, especially as a guard in the league, and which teams need what from you, right? So I think it's going to be a difficult meshing for her, but not impossible. So another thing to watch for as the season unfolds. But at the same time, financially speaking, like what you said, what's that going to look like, and how will that be for her as well? But I think just player personnel wise, like, how does her skill set match what they want to do. And I don't know. That's the question of the day, and I think it just remains to be seen once the season begins, like what it looks like, right? Like on paper, it's like doesn't look like it feels like meshy, if that's the word I'm just gonna use. It doesn't feel meshy just on paper, but that doesn't mean once the season begins and they actually are on the floor that the chemistry piece surprises us, or the chemistry piece is better than it looks on paper.
Well, they should have good chemistry, frankly. I mean, they are adding the big piece they're adding is Natasha Howard, but she's pretty easy to add, honestly. Like,
I would think,
it depends on what else happens. I assume trading Allisha Gray means they're intent on locking up Mabry, maybe McCowan as well.
Yes.
Not entirely sure how much I love the Howard McCowan front court, but that's a tough defense to score on.
Yeah.
And you put that around Arike Gumbawale, players you can get down the lanes, especially Howard with Mabry. I think it's a really interesting dynamic. And if Satu Sabally can be healthy, now we're talking about a team that can really compete in Dallas. And we'll see what happens with the draft capital, because that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, we are here at this point with Dallas that you want to win, right? At some point, you got to win. At some point, you got to start winning. Now, you made it to the playoffs last year. Like, take the next step. So I don't know if that draft capital that they got, I'm sure they'll try to keep some of it, but I think they're going to try to move some of it for a player maybe who falls through the cracks, or some team unexpectedly signs a player in their position. They got to move them. So I think there's plans there for Dallas, and I think they're not quite done in free agency either. And I'm excited to see where they go, because that's
agreed.
That's a franchise that should be doing better. I think. They should be moving up.
But it's time. I think it takes a minute just to get the pieces. It's about personnel, you know, and not just that. It's about personnel and how well and how quickly they mesh together, and how quickly they can have that chemistry and the synergy on both sides. On both sides. It's not every time you say chemistry, you're thinking offense. Offensively, but there's also defensive synergy you have to consider as well. Like, what kinds of things can you do defensively with the pieces that you have? Can you switch 1 to 5, or can you only switch 1 to 3? Can you switch at all?
I would hope they could switch.
Right, but that's the chemistry part of it, right? It's not just who can score. Like, if you're in the WNBA or any league for that matter, NBA, can you put the ball in the basket? I think is at the top of the list, but that's like a common denominator at this point. Right?
Yeah.
How well do you fit with the team that you're on defensively?
Natasha Cloud has the loudest workout I've ever heard. There's no
do it at the end. She's working. I just heard the net snap, so she fixed whatever she yelled about.
Good. But sorry. But yeah, no, I think, and hopefully they can mesh together. And like I said, I don't think it's that crazy to think that they will. But it is, and now it's like also getting on Arike Gumbawale's shoulders to kind of be not MVP, but like,
I mean, she's so good. She's so good. Seeing her face to face, on the court, it's like she's very well defended and makes these incredibly tough shots. That's when you're in an elite level, right? When you see that happen. So
but she could also be better at kicking out. Like, that's my other thing. Is like, get in the paint and kick out. Because if she has shooters around her, it's gonna look. And that's what she did that a lot last year before she got hurt at the end of the year. And they were offensively 4th last year. Good. That's good enough. If you're 4th in offense, you're good enough.
Right.
9th defensively. Can't be 9th in defense. Just can't be. The teams who made the playoffs were all good in defense. So you got to be able to step up and be a better defense. Natasha Howard helps in that regard. Losing Allisha Gray hurts in that regard. We'll see what they made up for it in the trade. I want to take it from Atlanta's perspective with Allisha Gray too. I mean, this is interesting because obviously this team is still really young. They have 5 players in the contract. So Cheyenne Parker, Daniel Robinson, who they just traded for, Ari McDonald, Ryan Howard, and Naz Homan. Those are the only 5 players in the contract in Atlanta right now.
Oof.
But you put Ryan Howard and Allisha Gray together on the perimeter, we're talking about a really scary defense.
That's legit. That's
Yeah.
legit. Yeah. Yeah, that's legit. I mean, when you have players who bear down on the defensive end that way, I mean, and their attention to detail. I mean, when you're talking about Ryan Howard and the rookie season that she had, rookie of the year, right? Um, and it's not just her offensive prowess. It goes back to what I was just saying
Oh yeah.
about your defensive energy and the understanding of what you provide as a defender. And now, like you said, adding Gray side by side with her, I mean, I think that can rival, what's here in DC, right?
Yeah.
And Tosh can't hear me, but with Cloud
Yeah, she better than
and
that.
Atkins, it's like it's a difference maker when you
Yeah.
have players who understand that's what you need from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have pride in that side of the court and on that side of the court and what they want to bring, what they want to be held accountable to bring day in and day out, like not just
Yeah.
in games but in practice, like working each other over, right? No one gets a pass. Like we're going to give it to you in practice. Like you're not going to be able to get by.
Oh
and
yeah.
and that's why the great defensive teams get better, because it's iron sharpens iron at the end of the day. And practices, they're going at each other with that level of physicality and energy and focus. So obviously in Atlanta, that's what they're gonna that's what they're gonna have there too.
The and I think so what you said there, like this could rival one of the better defensive backcourts
Yeah.
if Ryan Howard continues to improve on that end. But I think the other thing for Atlanta's perspective is like having Allisha Gray mentor Ryan Howard at this
Yeah.
age and just teaching her how to do the extra preparation, where to look, what are you looking for, like how to be most efficient in that preparation is only going to make her that much better, along with making this team really good. And I say this move's interesting because you think of Atlanta and you think of future, right? So we're talking about Ryan Howard as a future superstar. Talking
Right.
about Naz Hillman as a player who could grow into, hey, maybe not a starter, but a really solid bench piece. Ari McDonald's a pretty good point guard. Maybe she ends up being a backup. She's a really good backup point guard if that's the case.
Yeah. How about that?
So you think, right? Like, okay, Atlanta shouldn't be the team giving up draft capital. Atlanta should be the team, kind of looking at it and saying, okay, we'll take a step back and we'll wait our turn. They're not waiting their turn. They're putting their foot on the gas. They're bringing Allisha Gray in. I'm sure they're doing more in free agency. I'm sure there's stuff they have down the ballot because they wouldn't give up draft picks if they didn't think that they would be getting players to compete this year, next year, whenever. Because as soon as Ryan Howard's ready to compete, they want to be able to compete, which I think is smart. And this goes to another thing I want to talk about is like the changing landscape of the WNBA.
Okay.
Because obviously we've talked about Connecticut. Connecticut's looking like they're going to drop back a little bit.
Right.
We look at, a team like Chicago. If WNBA free agency goes crazy and Courtney Vanderbilt leaves, Ken Sparker leaves,
crazy.
that's a team that's going to take a step back as well. You look at Seattle, another team that is potentially taking a step back if free agency goes insane. And you look at Phoenix, and Phoenix is a wild card just because we don't know about Brittany Griner's health and condition. Obviously, we hope that her and Diana can circle the wagons, but no Skylar Diggins-Smith. So it's another team that you're looking at their talent level and you're saying, well, they also took a step back. And Skylar, I'm guessing there's going to be a trade for Skylar soon, just because that's the writing on the wall. She wants to.
Right. And she's expecting, right?
Yeah. And she's going to be out for some time this year. Not unsure about how long, but like seems like she's going to be out for some time. So Phoenix and another team. So we're talking about 4 teams there that could be moving back.
Right.
And Atlanta's looking at this and saying, why can't we be a team that moves up?
Right.
And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Say that last part again because Tosh was yelling. Just the last sentence. Can't hear.
So Atlanta's looking at those 4 teams saying, okay, they can fall back. Last year, we were almost in the play. We were in the playoff race. Like we had a chance in the playoff race. If Ryan Howard takes another step this year, where are we? We're looking at being a mid-tier playoff team. We're looking at a chance to get to the second round. We're looking at a chance to maybe make a run in the playoffs. And so I think I'm not sure it's smart. I'm not saying it's smart.
Right.
But it's cool.
It is.
And it's something that I think takes some guts and maybe some knowledge on Dan Padover's part to understand, where this league is going and to take a bold step like this in acquiring Allisha Gray. And I think there's going to be more from them, like I said.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I also think when you have um, high risk, high reward. That's not just on the court, right? That's off the
Right.
court, making business moves that way, and having hope that it will work out like that.
Right.
And like you said, make that rise that they want, take that jump that they want to take. With the players remaining on the roster, I think they have a big time chance to make that leap, especially adding a player like Allisha Gray. I mean, we're talking about her defensive energy, but she's a capable scorer as well. Let's not forget the lefty. She's tough. A tough cover, a tough matchup. And the way that she plays defense and the way that she gets out into, the open court. I mean, that's tough cover for a lot of teams, which is why she's been able to sustain herself in the league. But again, it's like high risk, high reward. That's what I like to say in situations like that. But I also, glass half full. That's me, and it's you too, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's you too. But I think when you have that level of hope and expectation, I think a lot of things come from that.
Right. No, I think it's gonna be crazy this year.
Yes.
This year's gonna be crazy. And the next so free agency officially begins in 2 days.
Yes.
This might be the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a massive. This is like a huge free agency year. I mean, clearly, right? With a lot of players in LA still not signed too. You're talking about,
we haven't talked about. I was gonna say we haven't talked about LA in the LA perspective of it.
Almost their entire roster is like free agent. I don't know. Like, I think they're still like, we've only seen a little of what is going to happen in the next couple of days in the WNBA, and there's going to be a lot of new faces and new places. So all my spotting boards I had from last year are going to have to just redo them all, because it's, there's going to be so many different teams, so many different faces on different teams, right?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to throw out stuff to see what can happen, because, like, I don't know. Have I mentioned Stewart to Vegas? I don't think it's gonna happen.
I don't think Stewart to Vegas, but I have more trust that Stewart will go to New York than Stewart going to Vegas, and you've convinced me of that. And now the Wizards are out of film, so it's loud. Sorry, guys.
I was wondering what you were looking at.
I know. I was like, oh gosh, but it's not too bad. So sorry, pardon me. But I see Stewie going there. Other than I see her going to New York, not Vegas. So
yeah, I can see her staying in Seattle for another year. I mean, there's a crazy idea that Jewel Lloyd could get traded today, and then they could core Breanna Stewart. I don't think it's gonna happen, because then, like, if you really want Stewart to be there by herself, mad at you, I don't think so. So I don't know. It's gonna be crazy though. This is gonna be crazy. Free agency, I think, more so than other ones. And we'll see. I mean, because we already had an MVP move. Maybe we could have, because Candace Parker's a free agent. We have Breanna Stewart
going anywhere. I don't think Candace. Let's just stay on Candace for a second. I don't think Candace is going anywhere. But I also didn't think she was leaving LA. So.
Well, how about this? How about I start another rumor, unsubstantiated, by the way.
Unsubstantiated.
Candace Parker to Vegas. Let's get that going.
Oh my God. Hey,
that'd be tight.
If you guys are watching this, hey, put it in the comments. Do you think that could happen? Because I personally, I didn't see her going back to Chicago. I'm glad she did, because wow, she won a championship back in her hometown. Priceless situation. I just don't think she's going to leave out of there. At this point, if she were maybe 8 years ago and she just won a championship, I mean, that's what LeBron did, right? Like, he went back to Cleveland and then he left again. So saying that, I can see this much credence to Candace to Vegas. But I just... But
if there's no one...
Like today, like her family...
If Chicago loses Courtney Vandersloot, I just don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. Like, how much can they compete? And Azurá Stevens has teams like flying out to Turkey to visit her, and so she may be priced out of their market as well. Right. And so if it all happens at once, we could see a situation where Chicago Sky are just kind of, they look around and suddenly their whole team's gone. Now Kansas is saying, well, why am I going to go back to like I want to play for a title, And
Exactly.
I could do that elsewhere. How about Candace to DC? Actually, I don't think that one's gonna happen. That would
Candace to
take a lot more.
DC, I know my kids would like pass out if that happens because they're major fans of hers. So,
But that's 3 MVPs. So we have Jonquel Jones on the move, we have Candace Parker on the move, and we have Brianna Stewart on the move. If things get crazy, if things get crazy, if
things get crazy,
this is a question probably for like Richard or Curtis, but if any WNBA like historians out there, like, has there ever been an offseason where 3 MVPs moved? Oh, Tina Strauss is a free agent too.
So 4.
That's 4. That's 4.
Wow. I think that's a question we need to put on Twitter with this post, right?
I think it's.
I don't think there's ever been 4. I mean, there's barely been one. To be honest, there's barely been one, Gabe. Right? Am I right?
I mean, in an off season, let's see. No, I think because Tina and Candace moved in the same one, so it's probably around. It's probably around 2 at the very. I remember 2 off seasons in which 2 MVPs changed teams because that was a Candace, Tina. Yes. So I think if we had 3 or even 4 with Tina,
4 is massive. 4 is crazy.
That's probably the most.
4 is crazy. 4 former MVPs moving. Can you imagine that in the NBA? Like,
has that ever happened?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's very uncommon. That's all I'm saying. And it's like, it's intriguing, right?
Because no one in the NBA, no one signs free agent deals anymore because they've learned that they could just get all the money and then request a trade later. Which is
after the fact.
Smart.
You're right.
Smart. But speaking of MVPs, we'll be talking about the offseason, all offseason, and it actually starts next week. So we may have real contracts to talk about next week. Yeah. But we just had trades this week. But I want to talk about another MVP, Maya Moore. I mean, she hasn't played in a long time.
How about that, man?
And she officially retires, and I think, as any time is, it's a great time to just give her flowers and talk a little bit about her greatness, both on and off the court.
Oh, just phenomenal. And I think what was funny to me was Sid Colson's tweet.
Yeah.
He said, only Maya Moore could take, 6 years to decide that she was going to retire after she opened up 3 law firms, a nursery school, had 5 kids, even though she just has a baby. But I thought it was so funny because it's like, I don't know, 6-year gap is a long time to mull over things.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's hard for me to make decisions, a lot, clearly. If that were, people had that as being a favorite thing, me being put on the spot and like choice. But for Maya Moore, to maybe be thinking, like you said, we were talking before we got on here, and like you said, like maybe speculating, could I actually make a return to the court? Maybe she was thinking that, but now just to have it finalized and to have her say, like, hey, that's it for me. Wow. After 6 years, in those 6 years, imagine if she would have continued to play. She was in her prime when she stepped off, stepped away. And we didn't know how long she would step away. And it wasn't a retirement at that point, right?
We didn't know.
But wow, for it to be 6 years and then to make that decision, I get it.
But
wow, it's like the unknown of that is like, it's always going to kind of pique my interest. Like, dang, I wonder if what would have happened in Minnesota or wherever else, right? If she would have moved, what would have happened during that time in the league?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I just wonder how many times she thought, like, hey, maybe I can come back. Like, maybe I can come back for, like, I'm not showing up to training camp. I'm not showing up to the first half of the season. Like, I'll show up for the second half of the season in the playoffs. But, like, I can still go. I wonder how many times she thought about that. But, like,
a lot. I'm sure a lot. Listen, I'm sure a lot. I'm sure a lot. And then, having a baby, that's always, and not just physically, but mentally, that's a tough emotional pull. That's a soul pull. Like, you can't, that's not like, oh, it's a decision. No, that's a mammalistic, like, emotional pull from the middle of the earth or whatever. But I think that when you have those decisions to make, I guess you needed a finality, of that.
Well, I think the Lynx.
Yeah.
The Lynx wanted it to happen too, just because,
Yes.
if she never, because there has been like every time, and we did it the first couple off seasons, like legitimately, like wondering, hey, maybe Maya Moore comes back.
Right.
And then it became, this past one, we were just joking about it, would she come back? But I think the team wanted it to happen because now they can celebrate her and say, she officially retired. We're going to put her number up in the rafters with the, everyone else from that era, with Sylvia, with Brunson, with, Waylon, the whole crowd, like get her up in the rafters. And, just to have the finale and the moment of giving her flowers. And, I think you said soul pool there and talking about her children. And I think that's what took her away from the game of basketball. I remember, like in the first off season that Maya had taken her leave, someone asked Cheryl Reeve about it, and Cheryl Reeve said it's not a basketball thing, like it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing that was happening, and like her spirit took her somewhere else. And I'm sad as a basketball fan because she's the great. Hey, I understand y'all got other arguments. For me, she was the greatest to ever do it. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the tape, you look at everything she did at every single level, everything she could do, and how she could fit into any era, any scheme, anything you ever wanted to do, both offensively, defensively. Like, and a player who was just as good offensively as she was defensively. Kind of like the heir to Tamika Catchings, and then she took what Catch had and just pushed it even further. So that's why she's my GOAT. Obviously I respect everyone's choices, but so yeah, from a basketball perspective, I'm sad we missed out, but I think the world probably got something a little bit more out of that, out of Maya Moore's doing what she did than we did on the basketball court.
Oh, no question about it. And when you talk about her full body of work, from being from right outside Atlanta, and then going to UConn and having the career that she did there, and then going to Minnesota and just being that savant of a player, like just smooth and just so crafty and strong and smart. And she was just a beautiful player to watch. It's like artwork, you know what I mean? It's like a pianist at their prime, and just everything was just so rhythmic and so smooth. I guess I can't get off the word smooth, but it was just so effortless for Maya Moore when she was playing the game. But she was also a fierce competitor. Like she did it like this, but it was like this. Like the force of her game was just unmatched. But that's who she is as a person. And so when she stepped away, the force of her humanity changed the chapter of her book.
Right.
Which I hope she does write a book, because how inspirational is that?
She did.
Oh, talk to me.
It came out. I think that's kind of, well, not to be cynical, but I think that's kind of the reason why she officially retired, was because there's a book coming. There's a book. She announced that a book's coming out.
Okay. Yeah. Shoot. I missed that. Sorry, people. I'm usually up on.
No, it just came. It came out with her announcement. Like it was all one thing. Okay. So she officially retired. She went to Good Morning America to promote the book, and
Oh shoot! I missed. You know what? I apologize. That's a couple days ago. But I missed the book news. But well, I didn't even know that. But go ahead and plug the book without even knowing I was plugging the book.
That was a great plug. Yeah, cut that and send that.
Go get that book, because I'm telling you, that's a blueprint right there, of how to do it, and how to do it the right way, and how to live by following your heart. And that's not always easy. Trust and believe me, because boy, you keep living and you're going to keep coming up against making those kinds of tough decisions. And you know how much she loved the game. You know how much she poured into it. Olympic gold medalist several times. Like, like that's tough to put down. That's tough to put down. But again, the soul pull of it all, motherhood, but also humanity, and doing what's right for others. Sometimes the compassion piece for Maya Moore is unmatched as well. Not about her. It's about the greater good. Always has been, always will be. And now, when you read her book, you can follow along. I mean, honestly, like that's the life path that is just uncommon.
Oh yeah,
it's an uncommon life path. So that's why it's so inspirational, because not everybody could do that.
She's the type of person who can succeed at anything and decides to use their talents to help other people. It's pretty cool. I mean, that's like, can't get much better. And, so we just wanted to give Maya her flowers. Speaking of giving flowers, I get two more bits of news because we got to move on to college basketball because a lot happened.
Okay, yeah. We do.
Sue Bird, jersey retirement on June 11th, so we'll give Sue her flowers again. Sue. And then WNBA is going to be in Toronto, Sky versus Lynx preseason on May 13th.
I love that.
Going to the north. Shouts to Karina, our friend over on Spread the Floor in Toronto. She's going to be able to go to a real game.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And then the All-Star game.
All-Star game's in Vegas.
Vegas.
Yeah.
You going?
Yeah. I don't know yet.
I don't know yet either, but I want to go.
We'll see how much money I waste at the Final Four in Dallas.
There you go. I want to go, but we'll see what it looks like.
We'll see. I do want to go though. I think it'll happen. I think we'll make it happen. Let's talk college basketball, college hoops.
Yeah.
Huge, massive, like seismic changes in the world of college basketball. I want to start at the top. Stanford loses to Southern Cal, and I put USC in the little banner thing that we have here on YouTube. And I thought better of it because I was like, well, USC, because I said this to Emily, my wife, the other night. I was like, oh, Stanford lost to USC. And she goes, which USC? I was like,
see? That's
in women's basketball.
Yeah, you gotta fine tooth comb that thing. That's right.
In our world, USC is the South Carolina Gamecocks. Southern Cal, though, huge win. Huge win against Stanford at home. It was 55-46, kind of a rock fight, kind of an ugly game. But Destiny Littleton, a former South Carolina Gamecock, 18 points, put the game away in the second half for the Trojans, and they score a huge upset.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing that they were able to sustain it. I think I was on a game that day, but we were side-eyeing that score like, Stanford's still losing. We were like, oh, Stanford's still losing. So it was
on Tuesday.
It was interesting. I think shots weren't falling. Brink, I think she was off in the first half anyway. I think she collected herself in the second half a little bit, but I think she had a really rough go of it in that first half. I believe she only made 2 shots, if I'm not mistaken, in that first half. But it's about being able to sustain it. So you have to give Southern Cal credit for being able to sustain their lead and their defense. 46 points for Stanford. Like, when was the last time that happened?
They held them to 30.9% from the field. And Stanford is a team that lives at the rim, and they just couldn't get there. And they ended up taking too many threes. I mean, they went 4 of 21 from 3, and also 14 turnovers for Stanford. And, obviously a huge win for USC. But I'm not sure this is that big of an aberration for Stanford. Like, they have continued to struggle in the last 2 years with not having a point guard, and their offense kind of, stagnating at times, being able to be, crushed at times like they were in this game. And so I'm just a little concerned about Stanford. They fall to number 4 in the polls. Also, their first Pac-12 loss since January 22nd, 2021 versus UCLA. So first one in 2 years. Just a really shocking loss and a huge win for USC, though. I mean, good for them. That's a great win, especially for Destiny Littleton, a player who never really got to take the reins over in South Carolina because of all the great players there, and she comes and shows why she was there, why she was in South Carolina in the first place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But what that loss did for Stanford, it moved Ohio State up to number 2 in the country at 19-0. Kevin McGuffin, his squad. I mean, the dub chain is alive in Columbus. That's what I keep saying, man. They got 19 dub chains that they've given out. But it's just been a phenomenal season for them, and they haven't even had a healthy roster. Madison Green's been out, and J.C. Sheldon, she's been out, but they've still been able to culturally thrive and really play great basketball.
Well, and for them to be this good without their best player. I mean, no shade to anyone else on the team, but J.C. Sheldon's the best player on the team. But she hasn't played. She's only playing 5 games this year, and they've been just rolling over teams. I mean, they beat Northwestern by 30. Illinois, though, that was a close game. Did you do that game?
I did not do that game yet. I haven't had Ohio State yet, so hopefully soon down the line.
Shauna Green was on the podcast with Dano and Ice and Calvin. the other day. Really good
Okay.
podcast. Y'all should check it out. It's super fun.
I love
But
Shauna.
Shauna, fun coach. Just obviously Ohio State's a good team, and they dropped one to them. I think Illinois just dropped another one to Indiana. So maybe that was
Yeah.
the game I was thinking about.
Yeah, and Mackenzie Holmes had 30 and 10 in that game, by the way. That's
so the Big Ten is keeping strong. And well, I do want to talk about one Big Ten team really quick. Did you see the end of the Iowa-Michigan State game?
I did, but I'm not live, but I saw the clips of it.
I saw the clips of it.
Yeah, because I was like en route, I was at my daughter's game. Yeah, I was at Georgetown game. When they beat DePaul, by the way.
Yeah, smacked DePaul.
But that's where I was. But I did see the clips afterwards, and I was like, wow, that was super dramatic. What did you think of it?
I mean, Caitlin Clark is the most exciting player in basketball. It's not just because of everything she does well for her team. It's also because just some of the stuff that happens when she's on the court is insane. I don't know. I'm not sure it's because of her or there's just some sort of weird aura of things are going to go crazy when Caitlin Clark's on the floor. And the end of that game was just such an amazing example of that. Yeah. Because it's just, I don't even know how to describe what happened because it was just so weird. And Iowa ends up winning it, keeping their top 10 ranking. So good for them, but just crazy game.
Close overtime. Michigan State. I mean, they gave them a game, and Michigan State beat Indiana. So it's like what you're saying in Big Ten play with 6 teams in the top 25. It makes a big difference when you're battling each other throughout the season. And we're not even into the thick of the conference season yet. And we've had these games like Nebraska beat Maryland. And now they have a rematch on Sunday, this weekend. And so it's beginning. We're not talking about jockeying for seedings and all that in the tournament, but are we though? You know what I mean?
We are.
Is it starting now? I think it is.
We're having ranked matchups. We're having big ranked matchups that are going to be on your resume. When we look at the teams that make the tournament, you got to have some of those ranked wins, and teams are starting to pile those up. Do you want to talk about the number 3 team in the country? Because you said obviously Ohio State's number 2. I think it's time for us to talk about LSU. Finally. Yeah. So they beat Arkansas. Arkansas is a good team. Second time they beat them this year. And they have a pretty good win against Oregon State. So we can't say they ain't played nobody anymore, I don't think. I don't think that's quite fair. They've played people, and Angel Reese has been an absolute monster in every game she's played. They're 19-0 too. How real do you think they are?
I think it's becoming more clear how real they are. I think they're meshing chemistry-wise, but, I mean, Angel Reese is a phenom when it comes to double-doubles, when it comes to her motor on the glass, when it comes to her ability to score, and understanding how she can score, I guess, is the biggest thing. But she's the first player at LSU since Sylvia Fowles to have 19 consecutive double-doubles. I saw that yesterday.
Good company.
I mean, that's major company, but just think of the upside that Angel Reese has right now and what she's been able to do with this team. I think it gives them a level of confidence to have a player who is a reliable double-double every night. That's just expected. Anything less than that is like a surprise. But I think legit number 3, I mean, they rose up from being down in the 20s, in the rankings, because they hadn't played anybody in the non-conference portion of the season that was ranked. But then now, now they're starting to gain that proper momentum, and that's what you want right now once they get into the thick of it. And, when is that South Carolina game? That's what I want. That's I want to see Boston and Reese. Give me that Boston and Reese game. Let me know, because I'll order some wings for that game, and I'm just going to sit there with some popcorn and some cranberry juice and with a lime and no ice. And I'm going to have a really great day whenever that is, because that's going to be the best game of the year. And
February 12th.
Yes. February 12th, circle that thing. I'm going to put it on my phone. I'm going to put it on my phone. Remind me of that. So it'll
be on ESPN. It's I think that's a Sunday. I think that's
February 12th. So we're gonna be watching that. That's gonna be the game of the year. And maybe a preview.
So
Seriously.
we have seen Angel Reese and Leah Boston go at it, and Leah Boston got the better of that matchup. But that's a different system out there in Maryland, and then Angels in and LSU. And LSU has an amazing backcourt. I mean, Morris and Johnson put on a show last night. They both have really insane, incredible moves, get to the rim, huge buckets, creating big turnovers. I did think I watched the Arkansas game. Obviously, we picked, sad for me. I mean, Michaela Daniels, Aaron Barnum, those seniors have been doing it for a long time for Mike Neighbors. This is not going to be an Arkansas podcast, I understand. But we'll pick.
Here he goes, y'all.
Hey, but they gave LSU their first close game this season, right? I think that means something, both from Arkansas's perspective, but also from LSU's perspective. Getting a close win against a good team in Arkansas is the first step to getting a close win against a great team in South Carolina or whoever you play in the tournament. The only issue for LSU is this is a down year for the SEC. Only 2 ranked teams. There's only LSU and South Carolina ranked. Not that there's not good teams. Tennessee's a pretty good team. Ole Miss is a pretty good team. Obviously, Arkansas is a good team. But it's not the tops, right? It's not the Big Ten where we're talking about these teams.
Right.
It's just a gauntlet. So I want to see LSU get tested a few more times because I did think they kind of tried to give away that game away at times. Someone taking off when they shouldn't in the fast break and then getting trapped or throwing a pass over someone's head or mistakes where you're a little excited about the moment. And I think they can get it cleaned up, but they're going to need chances to get cleaned up. So they need a close game against South Carolina and then be able to beat everyone else on their schedule. But I don't think I'm going to make a prediction. You can make a prediction here too.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to beat South Carolina, and they might get steamrolled by South Carolina. I won't predict that. I think South Carolina wins that game, though.
Yeah, I do too. I just think, I think it'll be close. I don't think it's going to be a domination, but I think the confidence level and the continuity and the chemistry, I think, will eventually overpower LSU.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen stranger things, and maybe I'm wrong. And LSU is a formidable team. I mean, I'm not saying that to be shady towards them at all. I'm just looking at continuity, chemistry, and experience together. You can't account for that a lot of times. And I don't care what X's and O's you run against it. Sometimes that's a monster that you can't operate against until you have it yourselves. Right? If they had comparable experience and chemistry with one another, I would probably have a different answer. But because
maybe that's next year.
Maybe that's next year. But because they don't this year, guess what? I'm saying South Carolina has the edge because of those factors. And that's just my personal opinion. That's not, a personal attack on anybody. So, don't say on Twitter
they're not going to say anything. It's fine.
Unless you listen, everybody has their opinion. I'm allowed my opinion. You're allowed your opinion too. But for me, I go heavy on experience, being the best teacher, experience and continuity, being that leverage piece when it comes time to win games. So if this game comes down the line, in the last 3 minutes and it's a 1-possession game, I give South Carolina the edge in that instance because of their experience and chemistry with one another, period. That's, I think anyone who watches basketball, played basketball, coached basketball will tell you the same thing. I'm not just saying it on a whim. It's not a whim opinion that I'm giving.
It's not a hot take to say. I don't think it was a hot take by me to say South Carolina. And maybe that is next year for LSU. I just think they're, like you said, they're a little inexperienced with each other. And I saw it come out a little bit in that game. And it's not to say they're not good. And it's not to say that Angel Reese is not a player of the year candidate. She absolutely should be a player of the year candidate. And if they keep up this pace, she might win the whole thing, right? True. She's been playing amazing basketball. I don't think it's not deniable at this point that she should be at least in the conversation and at least in the favorites category.
True.
Because it's Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark and I think it's Angel Reese. It's right there. She's right there with them. So LSU, that game's in a couple weeks though. We have a couple weeks. So just stay healthy. LSU and South Carolina, stay healthy for win your games, all that. Do that. Because we have to wait a couple weeks. So everyone stay healthy over there. I want to talk about one more game and we'll get you out of the Wizards practice facility. Wizards and Mystics practice today, and the Go-Go.
Yeah,
Shouts out to the Go.
Tasha's there giving a view. She's finished now, though. No, anyway, but she's still here.
I got one game to talk to you about for next week.
Okay.
And if you have other ones you want to talk about, that's fine.
Okay.
But on Thursday, the 26th, that is the 26th. Yes, it is the 26th. Ohio State at Indiana, 8:30. I'm not sure where it's on TV, but someone has to get that game on my television because that's going to be the game of the year, big game of the year in the Big Ten right there.
Yeah, that's a Big Ten game, Big Ten Network game.
All right, there we go.
I have the game prior to that. It was Maryland and Michigan, so that is a very good doubleheader. That game is in College Park, so if you're around, Gabe, you should show up if you can. If you don't have coaching duties,
we have practice.
Oh darn!
Unfortunately,
but you'll make it back for the 8:30 game.
Absolutely.
You'll see that.
I'll be back for the Maryland game. I just can't go out all the way to College Park.
Oh, all the way, yeah. But that's going to be a great night of basketball. I mean, 4 ranked teams playing back to back on the Big Ten Network. You got to watch that.
And you just got to see Michigan, right? You got to see Kim Barnes-Rico and who they play? Rutgers. They played Rutgers.
They had Rutgers. I have them on Monday at Indiana.
Oh, so you're Michigan out.
I'm Michigan out. After I didn't have them all year, and now I have them 3 in a row. So I'm excited. But they play some staunch defense. Let me tell you something. They're on a string. And yes, they don't have Naz Hillman, who is Big Ten Player of the Year, obviously. But they returned 4 of their 5 starters, Gabe. And people keep forgetting. It's not like they lost like a litany of seniors and, starters or anything like that. Naz Hillman is a big piece. However, this Michigan team they're tough, man. I'm telling you, they're tough-minded, tough-nosed. They score in the paint. That's where they won the game yesterday at Rutgers, just pounding the ball inside and finishing in there. And I just think they did a good job defensively. I mean, I think they're second best in scoring defense, just behind Indiana. Mm-hmm. 60 a game, I believe. Excuse me, 60.6 is what it was prior to the Rutgers game yesterday, which is a nugget that I have laid over here in my brain. But yeah, only giving up like 61 points, and they did that with Rutgers yesterday too. They just totally disrupted them, and that's what they've been doing all season.
Yeah, no, and then I'm excited for the Michigan Maryland game. I'm also but it's like this week is crazy in the Big Ten because we just mentioned India, you just mentioned Michigan. Well, guess who they have coming into town on Monday? They got Indiana. You got that's yours, right?
I have
and then
one.
Guess who Ohio State has coming into town? Iowa.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Right before your game.
Oh,
it's
boy. That's too good. That's 2 good nights. Like Monday and Thursday. You already know where you need to be.
So we got games on Tuesday and Friday, so I'm glad this is working out. I'm been able to watch all of the women's college basketball. But I mean, we could be looking at this game, right? This game that we think is like, the monoliths of this conference and the best 2 teams in Indiana and Ohio State, the unquestionably best 2 teams, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think if they lose, right, like everyone's back to being tied. Yeah. So if Iowa wins, if Iowa beats Ohio State and then Michigan beats Indiana, Ohio State and Iowa are tied at the top of the conference with 1 loss. Ooh. And then Michigan, Indiana, and Maryland are tied in second with 2 losses.
That's crazy.
So it's like this conference is this is year. I mean, I think it's very clear the Big Ten is the best conference in the country.
Yeah.
It's undeniable. It's undeniable at this point.
Yeah. I mean, 6 teams in the top 25. I mean, that tells the story right there. And night in, night out, especially this week on Monday and Thursday. 4 ranked teams playing on Monday, 4 ranked teams playing on Thursday. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And that
Maryland-Nebraska game you mentioned on Sunday.
And Sunday, the run it back game between Nebraska and Maryland. It's amazing in the Big Ten, but it's really gained a lot of traction over the years. But this it's always been at least 4 teams in the top 25. This year it's been 5 and 6 teams on a weekly basis. So we're really going to be able to tell a lot about all these teams coming up this week. So our pod next week is going to be really fun because we're going to be breaking down all those games, but it'll be fun.
We're going to talk about a lot about Michigan. Maybe we should just do a whole. Just ask Kim Barnes-Arico if she wants to hang out on Friday. Like, you're going to see her so much. Like, just ask her if she has plans on Friday afternoon. Like, we'll talk to her. Let's talk some hoop.
Buddies. We'll be buds. Yeah. Bring her on.
So, but like, I mean, you're gonna be best friends with her by the end of the week. So yeah, I think it's just gonna be an awesome week of basketball. It's gonna be an awesome week of free agency news. A bunch of stuff's gonna happen. I don't know what. I don't have information at the moment. So we will come back to talk about all of it. And yeah, man, I mean, we're just hoops and hoops and hoops and more hoops. Just hooping.
I love it.
We got games tonight. The Meridian Mustangs.
Oh, who you guys have?
We have Brentsville District.
Good luck, Coach. Good luck, Coach.
JV got a win after a 2-game losing streak. So
I love it.
Tuesday.
Get him, Gabe. Yeah. Coach him up, Gabe. Get him, Gabe.
We're getting there, and our players have worked really hard, and they're good kids. So.
That's because they have a great coach. That's how it works. No. That's how it goes.
We're working together to be great. Let's beat Brentsville in there. Go Mustangs.
Hey, I love it. All right. Well, I'm gonna try it. Should I get Tosh to come over here?
You want to get some shots? Oh, yeah. I was going to say you should get some shots.
She's done. She put on her her Converse, but they're low tops now. She changed out of basketball shoes. But maybe I can get her. She's talking to somebody. Maybe I can walk over there and say goodbye. Wait, too much. Don't do it. Okay, I won't do it. Well, I'll have her in the background and I'll do it like that. So
you want to sign off? Actually, no, sign off like that. Then
sign off like this? Okay.
Yeah, from Natasha Cloud and Gabe Ibrahim and Christy Winter-Scott.
They're right there.
They're right there.
We don't have to go home, but I personally have to get up out of here.
Christy actually has to go home today.
Go home, actually. But hey, thank you guys for joining us for another edition of Courtside with Christy and Gabe right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. So for Natasha Cloud and Gabe Ibrahim, I'm Christy Winter-Scott, and we'll see you next time.